Hey there, toy collector friends and nostalgia fans alike. Bit of a different video today here on the channel. I'm the time traveling toy collector, but this time I'm not so much talking about collecting toys as I am collecting a series of books. And these are some books that meant an awful lot to me, and I recently rediscovered them again whilst going through and emptying out some boxes I reacquired from home, and it really triggered me to remember just how much what we collect, especially around toys or things of our childhood, that really connects us back to our childhood. So I wanted to talk about this range of books. It's Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators, and essentially it's a series that I think started in the 1960s, so even before my time, and it was basically in the vein of Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys type of thing. Three lads growing up in California, that's them there, not this guy, that's something else. And they have their own detective agency, and it was really thrilling, and the books themselves were really well written for a young audience. So I first had this, I've got this particular copy, and this is the original one that I had in 1982. So this is the book from 1982. It's number 11. It's The Mystery of the Talking Skull. And it was, the reason I was introduced to it, I was in school, I was in Miss Edwards' class, I remember it vividly, and we had a cover teacher, and the cover teacher read to us at the end of the class, and this is the book that they read to us. But they only read the first few chapters, which was not great from my point of view. It was actually, yeah, some old school animations, but some illustrations, some sort of pen line drawings in there as well. Very, very of its time. And I really got engaged with it and really loved it, and loved the opportunity to apply the logic that the lead character, it's three boys, Jupiter Jones, Pete Crenshaw and Bob Andrews, and the titles tend to suggest some kind of supernatural element or mysterious element, and the mysterious elements do exist, but the supernatural is, in the majority of cases, explained away through logic, and it's usually somebody's cunning and conniving plan, in kind of the Scooby-Doo way, but it's arrived at in a much more thought through and logical process, with lots of clues dropped that really does stimulate the young mind. So this was the first one I actually purchased in 1982, or rather my folks purchased for me, because I was so desperate to find out what happened. So, you know, it was a very, that's their card there on the back. So there's the bit of the blurb from the books, but you know, they're not extremely lengthy. Let's see, without spoiling it for you, how many pages it actually was. So it's 127. So that's good. You get there 127 pages, which is, you know, not a lot, and it's very good, very, very enjoyable, very, very fast-paced story, in my opinion. And they produced a lot of them. They were, as I say, originally in the 1960s, I think it was, and they managed to attach Alfred Hitchcock, who you probably know, but in case you don't, was a very big, literally and figuratively, film director, mostly of horror films, but also of thrillers, in Hollywood, in the 50s, 60s and 70s and so forth. He directed things like The Birds, Vertigo, and perhaps most famously Psycho. So really, really good book, but because I'm a collector, I couldn't just have this one and know everything from that. So I really then needed to get the whole collection, and I started to. And the very first book in the collection was Alfred Hitchcock and the Three Investigators, The Secret of Terror Castle. And this book actually was out of print for quite a while, and it was ordered in, and I actually got this for Christmas. I think Christmas 1983 or Christmas 1984 possibly, because I do remember it being a very long wait before I was able to get hold of it. But even then, there was quite a lot that were out of print. Now, this is not the first iteration of these books, and if you go online, do a quick search, you'll see that there are lots of different versions of front cover artwork and hardback versions. But in the early 80s, this was the pervading format, and what basically what we were purchasing looked like this. Really, really good stories, and I recently started rereading them, and I genuinely didn't necessarily think they'd stand up to the test of time. They really do. For me, they really do. But then it plunges me into nostalgia, and I don't mind being plunged into nostalgia. So that was the very first one. Then we had a situation where they went out of print. Quite a few were out of print, and I had to really wait until they came back in. So this was number 20 in the range, and it was quite sporadic which ones were out of print and which ones weren't. But the Mystery of Monster Mountain, actually this is one of the few books that do contain an unresolved paranormal or supernatural element, but I'm not going to say more than that. But again, they're all pretty much of a length, but this did mean that it was a deviation from, let's see how much this was, £1.25. Oh, just going back to the previous ones, just to show you, this book cost 95p in the UK, not even a pound. And that was the second iteration, so that's it's not bad. The second iteration of that format, again, it had been previously released in the 60s, I think it was. So yeah, so they were really, really good, and of course the artwork evolved slightly. The boys never aged for, you know, comedy value. But these books continued, and then one that took absolutely forever, and I think this was literally the last one of the original set that I waited the longest to get, was The Mystery of Deathtrap Mine. It's not the best of the lot. They're all very strong and well written, but this one is you know, by no means the best, but it was the one that sticks in my mind. Why I picked it just to showcase it here, because it was one of the ones I had to wait the longest for. And I don't know whether there was a resurgence in the 80s for these, because there were suddenly quite a few more that started to be developed and created. So from the original run, we then got a few additional ones. So this was number 38, The Mystery of the Smashing Glass, which kind of became the last one of, and I say this in inverted commas, the original run. And certainly the ones that look like this. After this one, we had another shift. In terms of what the Three Investigators books look like. Again, this one was £1.75. There's some other international prices, so you can see that the genuine article from quite some time ago. But yeah, then we saw another shift into this iteration, which is The Mystery of the Trail of Terror. So it was either The Mystery of or The Secret of. Three Investigators, same old sort of artwork, slightly modernised clothing and haircuts, I would suggest. But here's the back for reference purposes. But yeah, it's usually a human-based threat. That's not designed to be a spoiler, because it is. They're really well written. They're really, really high quality. Young people's fiction, and they do really an excellent job of stimulating the mind and the thoughts of young people. I really benefited greatly from reading this series. I couldn't get enough of it. So much so that after reading the Mystery of the Talking Skull, I then spent my pocket money that I'd saved up, etc. Over that summer, we were on holiday in Scotland visiting family members, and over that summer there were 2 or 3 shops that I would frequent, and across that summer I picked up probably about 15 of the Three Investigators books, and then the rest I collected afterwards. So again, this was the same time I was collecting the original Star Wars toys and Action Man and G.I. Joe figures, so it's not that weird that I was collecting stuff. But I'll tell you what really irks me, and it probably irks you too, is that we then have this. I don't know why we have to change something so it looks like this. So when they're on the shelves together, you see, it doesn't marry up. There's no continuity. I don't like it. The 39's there, 38's there. The original run, as I mentioned before, the numbers are all along the top. You can see that. So that was number 1 there, number 1 in the corner. So yeah, so I would say that that's one of those sort of curses of collectors, when you just can't get a complete collection that matches up. And I know there's been some conversations about whether or not the recently revealed here we are in October 2022. The recently revealed change to the Doctor Who logo is going to have a similar impact on the Doctor Who Blu-ray collection, which it has been a sterling piece of work, and I have been asked, I've posted some photos, I've been asked to do some reviews of them, so I may do that. But it's been a stunning piece of work, but it also unified the collection, you know, that people have been collecting, and now there's the risk that it might change to marry what's on the telly, and I think that will cause an element of collector uproar. But there you go, such is life. Anyway, thank you for indulging me for the last 10 minutes or so. I won't keep you any longer, but I do recommend that you try to engage with the stuff from your childhood. Sometimes it connects us to some very painful memories, but sometimes it also helps us realise that we've moved on from those and we've become better for it. Or it connects us to really positive times in our youth. These books do both of those things for me, which is why I'm probably mentioning it. But for me, one of the best collections of books I've ever got, and I would recommend them to anyone, and also anyone who has children sort of around reading ages 9 upwards, but they don't feel patronising and they don't feel condescending. And as I say, I'm rereading them now, and I really still enjoy them, but that could just be me. Anyway, thanks very much for your time this last 10-15 minutes. Do please like the video whilst you've waited to the very bitter end, and also do subscribe to the channel. It may not always be something that you're interested in, but there's a lot here to see, and there'll be a lot more coming soon. So do subscribe, turn on notifications, and smash the like button, and let your friends know that I'm here too. And also take a little nose around, because there's bound to be something that you like. And don't hesitate to drop me a message here or on my Instagram account at the Time Travelling Toy Collector if there's anything in particular that you used to collect, what your holy grail is for toys from the past, because I'd like to do a bit of a video on that at some point in the future. Anyway, thanks very much, take care, and remember that a thing of beauty is a toy or a collectible of some description forever. Bye bye for now.